Mr. Kin Lian has been one of our regular speakers. I don't think he needs further introduction. Mr. Tan. Very happy to see you again.
A very good afternoon, and nice to see all of you here. Give yourself one big clap. Now, I want to talk about abuse of power. Now, we know the accusations were made by Lee Wei Ling and Lee Hsien Yang, and they make the allegation against their brother, Lee Hsien Loong, the Prime Minister of Singapore. And the issue is about Lee Kuan Yew's house at 38 Oxley Road. Now, what are the actions that they consider to be abuse of power? I can identify 3 of them. You heard about this. One is preservation of the house. Second is the formation of the ministerial committee. And third is the deed of gift. So why were these actions considered to be abuse of power? Preservation of the house should be left to the National Heritage Board. It is not to be decided by the cabinet or a ministerial committee. Then second is the challenge to Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's will. That should be left to the court, not to the ministerial committee. And third is the deed of gift. Now, these are the items that the executors want to put into the exhibition. Lee Hsien Loong obtained that deed of gift because he's the Prime Minister. And then he used that in his personal capacity as a beneficiary of the estate to object to that deed of gift. So this is improper. All right, so these are the 3 things. But I want to add one more. Someone mentioned to me, and how many will did Mr. Lee Kuan Yew have? How many will did he write? How many? How do you know it's 7? Now, how many will did I write? Nobody knows, right? Now, a will is something that is personal to Lee Kuan Yew. How can the lawyer, without Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's permission, disclose that there are 7 wills? Okay, so this is something that someone pointed out to me is very improper. A lawyer is supposed to keep in confidence the will of the client. And how can they just release all the 7 wills? Okay, so now all these abuse of power, improper action, should we have a independent commission of inquiry to look into it? And my answer is no. These are relating to a family quarrel. It doesn't concern us. It's not abuse of power against the people. It's a private, personal, family matter. So I say we don't need to have a commission of inquiry. We are quite tired of this issue. Let the matter rest. But I have 3 other issues I want to bring up. Now, first is Lee Kuan Yew's last will. Now, Lee Hsien Loong said, was that will written was the demolition clause inserted without Lee Kuan Yew's knowledge? Now, I studied what happened. Lee Kuan Yew signed the will in December 2013. He died 15 months later, March 2015. Now, during the 15 months, I'm sure Lee Kuan Yew would have looked at the will And if he see that the clause was inserted without his knowledge, he would certainly have corrected it. And I also asked, will there be any lawyer brave enough to put the clause into his will without Lee Kuan Yew's knowledge? So to me, it's very clear. The will is what Lee Kuan Yew wants. But what worries me is this. Why, if this is so obvious to me, why is it not obvious to the ministerial committee? Are the ministers afraid to take an opinion different from the Prime Minister? Now the next matter is, what is Lee Kuan Yew's real intent? We all know he says, when I pass away, I want my house to be demolished. He said that a long time. But later on, his elder son, Lee Hsien Loong, said the government wanted it preserved. Actually, we all know it's not the government. We know it is the Prime Minister himself. He wanted it to be preserved. Whatever reason, he must have his reason. Now the question is, if Lee Hsien Loong wants the house preserved, why doesn't Lee Kuan Yew go along with him? Okay, so this is something that puzzled me. If the son is so keen to preserve the house, Lee Kuan Yew can say, okay, since you are so keen, I'll let you preserve the house. But Lee Kuan Yew doesn't want. So this is my speculation. That means Lee Kuan Yew probably find that Lee Hsien Loong's values are different from his. His goals are different from him. Of course, we never know the answer. We can only sit back and just ask ourselves this question. Now, my third point is, what are the real challenges facing Singapore? Now, I have been worried about this for many years. When Lee Hsien Loong was Prime Minister, and even when Goh Chok Tong was Prime Minister. What were my worries? We become very high cost. We become uncompetitive. We become very wasteful. And all this will affect us. And our people are now worried. They are worried about the future. They are worried about the cost of living. They are worried about jobs. They are worried about stress of living. So these are the concerns of the people. Now, if these are the concerns of the people, why are the government not addressing this issue? And what do? They spend one over year meddling with the constitution on the reserved presidential election. And then they spend a few months arguing about Lee Kuan Yew's house. Don't we have our other problems? And we do have a lot of other problems. Now, recently I carried out a survey in my website. Okay, I have a website called The Wisdom of the Crowd. All of you are the crowd. So I asked the people in the website, what are the actions taken by the government during the past years that caused the most harm to Singapore? And the answer may come as a surprise to you. It is not misunderstanding with China. It is not the quarrel in the Lee family that caused our international reputation to come down. It is not the two casinos that caused many families to be bankrupt. The top vote goes for immigration policy increase in population. The second highest vote goes to who is the person heading Temasek Holdings. So these are the two highest votes, not the others. Now, it is time for us to make a change. And Lee Kuan Yew was Prime Minister for Singapore for 3 decades, 30 years. And he stepped down at the age of 67. Goh Chok Tong was Prime Minister for 14 years. He stepped down at age of 63. Lee Hsien Loong already Prime Minister for 13 years, and he's already older than Goh Chok Tong when he stepped down. So Lee Hsien Loong is 65 now. So if we look at this past precedent, it is time for us to make a change. Now, Singapore faces a lot of problems, economically and politically. And we just cannot carry on the way we have been going in the past. So it's time for us to make a change, and I hope that Lee Hsien Loong will reflect upon this and maybe pass the baton over to someone younger than him, someone who doesn't want to take over, but someone who is quite popular among the people of Singapore. So I hope that this change will come. Thank you.